wonder how much you can learn about a country from just one day's news? Well, sometimes it tells you pretty much everything you need to know. That's what we're going to do today. We're taking a snapshot of a nation's biggest struggles by digging into just two stories from one newspaper on one single day. So let's dive in.
So, what are we looking at? We've got two big editorials from a single edition of Pakistan's Dawn newspaper. The date is February 3rd, 2026. And what's so fascinating here is that when you put these two pieces together, they paint this incredibly stark and really challenging picture of what the country is facing right this minute.
Now, on the surface, these two stories seem like they're from different planets. I mean, one's about this long, drawn-out public health crisis. The other? It's about a sudden, deadly spike in violence. But, and this is the key, as you're about to see, they're not separate issues at all. They are actually two fronts in the very same war.
All right, let's start with the first one. It's a fight that's been raging for decades now. The national mission to finally wipe out polio. And believe me, this is no small thing. We're talking about a massive, recurring, nationwide effort.
The sheer scale of this is it's mind-boggling. Just to give you an idea, at the start of the year, they launched another one of these week-long campaigns. The goal? To immunize over 45 million children. Just stop and think about the logistics of that for a second. It's incredible. So how do you even pull something like that off? Well, you need an army of people. In just one province, Sindh province, they had to deploy 80,000 health workers. 80,000! Going door to door, village by village, just to get that vaccine to the kids. Right here, this is where we start to see one of the biggest hurdles. See, this isn't just a health campaign. It's a full-blown security operation. In just one other province, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, it takes 50,000 police officers just to protect the people giving the vaccines. That's insane. But here's the thing. Despite all of these insane challenges, it's actually working. They're making real progress. I mean, look at this. Polio cases were cut by more than half in just 1 year. They went from 74 cases in 2024 all the way down to just 31 in 2025. That's a huge deal. But that progress is super fragile. This virus is just so stubborn. So the fight is nowhere near over. It's still circulating in these key hotspots, places that are really hard to reach, like the remote regions of North Waziristan or deep inside the dense slums of a megacity like Karachi. And that brings us to a really critical point the editorial makes. It says, look, we can't just keep doing these same routine campaigns over and over. It lays out 3 keys to really winning this thing. First, focus on the quality of the vaccinations, not just hitting a giant number. Second, you've got to tackle the root causes, stuff like poor sanitation. And third, and this is so important, you need smarter, intelligence-led security for the health workers on the ground. The editorial really puts a fine point on it with this quote. It basically says the fact that polio is still around, it's not just a health problem. It's a matter of national pride, a national embarrassment even, and a threat to the whole world. And that feeling of a national threat, well, that leads us perfectly into our second crisis. Yeah, because on that exact same day, the paper's other lead editorial was dealing with a totally different kind of threat. We're talking about a deadly comeback of terrorism, and it's so serious that it's forcing the country to rethink its entire security policy. So what kicked this all off? A series of recent, very coordinated attacks. And these weren't happening out in the middle of nowhere. No, they hit major city hubs like Quetta and Gwadar. That shows a scary level of organization. The editorial doesn't mince words. It calls it a wake-up call for the whole country. And when you look at the numbers, man, it is a grim picture. 2025 was just an awful year. Something like 5,400 terror incidents that took more than 1,200 lives. And the trend? It's going in the wrong direction. I mean, just look at January 2026 alone. 87 attacks, 119 people killed. That's in just 1 month. This all leads to a really confusing and urgent question. According to the military, in 2025, they carried out over 75,000 intelligence-based operations. Think about that number. It's huge. So the editorial asks the million-dollar question. If you're doing all that, why isn't the violence just continuing? Why is it actually getting worse? And right here, this is where our two stories, the one about the virus and the one about terror, finally click together. It turns out they're not separate problems at all. They're just two different symptoms of the very same deep-seated challenges. I mean, just look at how similar they are. Both fights require the government to get into these remote, hard-to-reach places.
In both fights, the people on the front lines, it doesn't matter if they're carrying a vaccine cooler or a rifle, are being violently attacked. And when you boil it all down, success in both cases depends on the very same thing. You have to win the trust and the cooperation of the people who live there.
So the big takeaway here is that the solutions are connected. To win on either front, you need the same basic building blocks. You have to build trust in the community. You have to provide real security for the folks on the ground. You need a real long-term strategy, not just reacting to things. And you have to back it all up with serious, unwavering political will.
And this one quote, it's from the polio article, but it just perfectly nails the core issue for both problems. It says, this isn't about not having the right tools or enough people. At its core, whether we're talking about wiping out a virus or wiping out terror, it's a test of governance, plain and simple. Which brings us to the final conclusion we can pull from this one day's news. The real challenge for Pakistan, the ultimate test, is to move past these repetitive routines and find a new, lasting resolve to fix things.
You know, when you read them together, both of these editorials are basically begging to break the cycle. They're arguing that the same old patterns, these routine campaigns against polio and just reacting to terror attacks, it's just not cutting it anymore. The old playbook, it's just not working.
So, what are they demanding? A total shift in how things are done. It's a call for a new, proactive strategy, one that actually deals with the root causes, protects the people on the front lines, and has real, consistent backing from the very top.
And that really leaves us with this huge central question. And it's not just for Pakistan, right? It's for any country stuck in these long-term fights. When you've been battling these same problems for so long that the crisis just starts to feel, well, normal, how do you break out of it? How do you find that collective resolve to finally write a new story?